Okay, so this is the circle vocabulary. There's a whole bunch of stuff, so we're going to fill it all in. So, first of all, definition of a circle. It's a set of points in a plane that are all the same distance from the center. So the circumference of the circle all the way around represents a set of points. Point O is the center, and that's actually how you name a circle. You name it by its center. So this would be circle O, not circle 0. Okay. Now, radius. A radius is a segment that connects the center, it has to serve the circle, and it goes out to the side or the circumference of the circle. So it's a segment that connects the center to the side. Radii, R-A-D-I-I, is plural for radius. And what the other thing you need to know, this starred thing, very important. If I drew more than one radius in my circle, like spokes of a wheel, they would all be congruent. All radii are congruent, no matter how many you draw from the center, because they're all equal distance to the circle. So a diameter goes all the way across the circle. A diameter has to go through the center. Okay, so diameter would be AC. You could call it CA if you wanted. I could draw a diameter this way. You know, there's an infinite number of diameters in a circle, but it must go through the center, and it must end on the circle in 2 places. The other very important thing to note is a diameter is essentially a radius plus another radius. Since a radius is halfway across the circle, a diameter is all the way. So if you double the radius, that will equal the diameter. That's going to be very important when we do area and circumference of a circle. So a central angle is exactly what you think it means. A center, it is centered at right there at the middle of the circle. So its vertex has to be at the center of the circle, and then you have basically its sides are radii. So if you take the center, you go out to the side, and then you go out to another side, you've created a central angle. You can name it, COD, or you could go DOC, that doesn't matter, but the center of the circle should be your middle letter when you name a central angle. So a chord is a segment that has both endpoints on the circle. So it has to be a segment, not a line. It has to stop. Each endpoint has to be on the circle. So it doesn't have to go through the center. So a chord can kind of be up over here. It doesn't have to pass through the center. If it does, a diameter is a special chord. So a diameter is also a chord, but it's special because it goes through the center. But chords can be drawn elsewhere as long as the 2 endpoints are on. So a tangent, this one is trickier to draw carefully, but it's a line, or really it could be a segment. I could end it at AE, but I would have to make sure I stopped at E. But you may see a tangent drawn kind of as a segment or a ray. But it intersects the circle in only one point. So technically it only touches, even though it looks like it touches elsewhere, it's only touching at E. And then if you ever see this, point E is called the point of tangency. So add another point here so we can name this line. So it intersects the circle exactly 1 point. Okay, and then a secant is a line. Technically it's a line, but you can see it, sometimes you can see it a little bit differently. As long as it passes through the circle and one part of it extends beyond the circle, then it's a secant. So I could here's another situation where you might see that. Like maybe I have a point here, but it goes through and keeps going. That would also be a secant. Even though it doesn't extend past D, it does go through and continues on. It's not a segment, So that's a ray. So it doesn't necessarily have to go beyond the circle both sides, but it has to go outside this. It has to extend outside the circle at some point. So this would also work. Ray FD would also work. Normally you'll see it going all the way through like this, but as long as part of it keeps going, then you can call it a secant. So let's try these examples. So what letter would be the center of the circle? A. Now, for radius, there's more than one answer here, so we'll take a couple answers. So a radius, remember, has to go from the center and end on the circle. So FA could be a radius. Which one? BA. Sure, so let's stop there. That's just a couple. As long as it goes from the center, so you could have like DA. Okay. A diameter. BD. That's the only diameter that's drawn in there. BD. Or DB. Doesn't matter which. Okay. A chord. What do you think? Has to have its two endpoints on the circle. BC. Right there. BC. BC. BG? No. Tangent is EG. Is that what you meant to say? Yeah, the tangent is EG because there's your F is just touching in one place. And the secant? DC. Perfect. So those are kind of your segments and some of the angles. So then we have to talk about part of the circumference, which are arcs. This is where you'll want to use your highlighter. So a semicircle is an arc that's half the circle. So it literally goes around. So an arc is part of the circumference. An arc is part of the circumference. So exactly half of the circle. It equals, that's probably what I should have put there, equals 180 degrees. So you highlight around. You name it with 3 letters. That way we know which way we're going around the circle. Minor, if you think a minor, it means small, not big. So a minor arc has to be smaller than a half a circle. So it has to be less than 180 degrees. It corresponds to a central angle, and we'll get into that more later when we talk about these arcs. But it would be the same degree as this central angle. You only use 2 letters to name it, though. So I just go from A to E, or I could do E to C. EC would be another one. It's less than 180 degrees, so that's another minor arc. And then a major arc, major, large, big, majority. So a major arc is larger than a semicircle. If you want to figure out how many degrees, you'd take the whole circle, 360, so the whole thing, and you'd subtract that little baby arc from it. And it takes 3 letters to name it, because that tells you essentially which direction I'm going around the circle and what letters I'm passing through. So I'm starting at H, I'm passing through C, and I'm stopping at E. So that's a major arc. I'm going around the majority of the circle. It requires 3 letters to name it. Okay? Are we good on that? Yes? The last thing you can do with arcs is I can put them together, just like we added segments once upon a time. I can have 2 arcs right next to each other. They have 1 point in common. If they're next to each other like that, I can always add them together to create a larger arc. So that's called arc addition. We're adding arcs. So if you take arc HE and then you take arc EC and put them together, you will get the measurement of arc HEC. That's all. So adjacent arcs can be added together to create a larger arc.